this House do now adjourn.
The question is that this House do now adjourn. Dave Doogan.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Very pleased to raise the issue of the Radio Teleswitch decommissioning in the House this evening. It's a pressured and important matter for 4,665 households in my Angus and Perthshire Glens constituency, a further 80,000 households across the north of Scotland and fully 800,000 households across GB. So the ending of the Radio Teleswitch system, or RTS, which controls total heating with total control meters, is of vital importance to electric-only customers and yet remains a troubled landscape to some extent. RTS is a radio signal that tells total heating with total control meters when to switch between peak and off-peak rates. And this obsolete system will come to an end on the 30th of June 2025. It was originally going to cease on the 31st of March 2024, but had to be pushed back because the system wasn't ready, and that should have been when alarm bells started to ring. Customers are therefore being asked to switch to smart meters, and Energy UK, the trade body for energy suppliers, advises customers that if they do not switch to a smart meter, and I quote, "You may find that your heating and/or hot water is continually left on or off, or the charging up that happens at the wrong time of day. Your electricity supplier won't be able to confirm how much electricity you have used during peak or off-peak times, which means your electricity costs could be much higher than before." So we can see, Madam Deputy Speaker, that this message, however accurate, it can easily be a source of alarm for customers. Any of us who have had the misfortune to have electric-only heating will realise that even with the discounted rates, it's still ferociously expensive. And so the idea that you could do it without the discounted rates is simply not realistic.
Honourable friend, give way.
I'm very happy to give way.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Like my honourable friend, I have significant concerns about the end of RTS in rural Scotland. Moray West and Strathspey has a disproportionate number of RTS meters, myself included in that statistic. My own experience with OVO Energy and switching to a smart meter from an RTS has left a lot to be desired. I have had several telephone conversations with OVO representatives as a private customer regarding the RTS switchover. The main question I had during these phone calls was, if I switch, would I be better or worse off, or paying the same as I am now for electricity? To which I had to push extremely hard to get a straight answer. If that's the difficulty I am experiencing as someone who is experienced assisting constituents with this very issue, does my honourable friend share my concerns about how more vulnerable people who may feel immense pressure from operators installing new meters will be impacted?
I thank my honourable friend for his intervention. He raised a couple of points. One is really important, and that is whether or not customers have an option. They actually don't have a realistic option. The Radio Teleswitch system is coming to an end at the end of June next year, and they will not want to be in the position where they do not have a smart meter that can toggle between reduced rate tariff and full price tariff. That simply will be ruinously expensive. However, he also touches on the communication and quality thereof that supply companies are having with their customers. And one of the reasons that the uptake is so slow is that people don't have confidence in smart meters. And why would they? There's plenty of problems with the smart meter rollout for just regular electricity customers who just want to know how much electricity they're using. The stakes are far higher for electric-only customers who heat their homes with electricity. They need confidence they need confidence that the smart meter will actually work, and I'll come on to that just in a little second. I will give way.
Doogan.
Thank you for giving way. You mentioned Energy UK, and my honourable colleague here also mentioned the number of people in his constituency. I think it's in the region of 3,000 in Aberdeenshire North and Murray East. These people need clarity about what's going to happen. Does my friend agree that households need this clarity on these proposals, and that the government should use all means available to them to ensure that this rollout is fair and provides reassurance to customers?
Doogan.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Well, the operative word in my honourable friend's intervention was fair, and I'll come on to exactly who owns the risk of this situation in a moment or two. I will give way.
Jim Shannon.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I thank him for giving way, and he very kindly, in our discussion beforehand, I sort of suggested what I would be referring to. So does the honourable member not agree that whilst Northern Ireland we have similar issues in place, the needs of the rural areas need to be taken into consideration, and with the cost of living crisis that we are currently living through, which centres on an energy crisis specifically, we need to ensure that people are not paying more because they are unaware of the steps that are needed to deal with this very change. Thank you.
I thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank my honourable friend again for his intervention. He's quite right. Northern Ireland is a different energy market from GB, but there will be, without question, electric-only customers in the larger settlements in Northern Ireland as well. I know they're heavy users of heating oil, but nevertheless, the same scenario will exist in Northern Ireland, and the same department, although it's a different energy market, it still has to have oversight of the equity and effectiveness of whatever solution is found for that part of the United Kingdom. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, constituents have contacted me concerned that being asked to switch to smart meters without guarantees that the smart meter will work properly. Some customers who have switched to smart meters but have poor reception are being asked by suppliers to submit manual readings, and it's not clear if manual readings would be compatible with alternative economy tariffs, as these are based not only on how much energy is used, but also when that energy is used. The data communications company manages smart meter networks which can reach 99.3% of properties, and more than half of homes in GB are already connected. Information is transmitted over a wide area network using mobile phone or radio masts sent from each property's communication hubs, but it differs. In central and southern GB, smart meter data is transmitted using cellular and wireless mesh technology provided by Virgin Media and O2, whereas in the north of England and in all of Scotland, it's transmitted over long-range radio signals provided by Arqiva. It would be safe to say, Madam Deputy Speaker, that there remains substantial concern over the ability of two-way communication between supplier and customer over this system. This is no small part of the hesitancy common in customers of total heating and total control to rush towards the need to switch. I'm very happy to give way.
I'm grateful to the honourable gentleman for giving way. He's already touched on the fact that radio teleswitching is going. It's an analogue technology, and if it lasts until June next year, then we will indeed be fortunate. It could even just sort of collapse at any second. So smart meters are actually what is going to replace this. The point is surely, though, that it is not beyond the wit of man to design a smart meter that would provide something like total heating with total control. They don't at present, but that's just because they're not designed to do so. Is it not the case that this could be fixed if the regulator would get the companies and the different players all together and tell them to produce something that suits the customers and not just suits themselves?
Dave Doogan.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The honourable gentleman, who will have no small number of these in his own constituency, it touches on a really important point, and that is the vagary or the vagueness around this. Customers are being told on the one hand that they must do this, and then when they ask any detail about that which they must do, it's scant, vague and conflicting with other. And you only have to look at the forums on the energy companies' websites and on Facebook to see it's peer-to-peer support that's answering the questions that people have on this issue, rather than a cohesive and comprehensive programme of information from, as he says, the government, the department, the regulator and the energy companies working in concert in a professional and coherent way to let customers know exactly what's going to be happening. On the speed of the rollout, Madam Deputy Speaker, energy suppliers and the UK Government and consumer groups have committed to cooperating to replace RTS meters prior to the shutdown, which is pretty minimal commitment. The 10 energy companies that have pledged their participation include British Gas, EDF, E.ON, Octopus, OVO, Scottish Power, SO Energy, SSE, Total, Energies, Utilita and Utility Warehouse. And the industry, through its call to action, has committed several measures, and these include zeroing in on regional hotspots with the highest number of RTS customers. That's really good, but it's late. And it doesn't, and they've got a catch-up job in public relations and customer confidence, and they need to accept that and resource it. And expediting meter upgrades for RTS customers, giving prioritisation to vulnerable customers, getting upgrades and cooperating to solve technical issues, and pooling knowledge of various expertise across companies. This shouldn't really be a competitive commercial endeavour. It should be a call to action across energy companies. And the fact of the matter is, different houses are wired up in different ways to accommodate total heating with total control, and they will interact differently with smart meters when they're fitted, and that needs to be reconciled as well. And they'll issue monthly reports on meter replacements, and I would urge honourable and right honourable members in the Chamber to focus in on those monthly updates, because the problem that we'll have, Madam Deputy Speaker, is that replacing all RTS meters would stretch until 2028 if we continue to do that at the current rate, but we've only got till June 2025. That's why I and my constituents, and to be fair to the industry, are so concerned. Industry wants this to work. These are their customers. They want their customers to be supplied, and they want to be paid for that supply. Industry is not trying to make this not happen, quite the opposite, but we need to change gear and we need to change pace. Industry is confident that they have the capacity, Madam Deputy Speaker, to deliver for every home, but not if they all come forward in April, May and June. That won't work. So that's why it's a call to action now that we need. We're into December. Nothing's going to happen before the new year, but we need to ensure that we're going to hit the ground running in January with this priority. So I asked the Minister both now and I made sure that she had advanced sight of my questions for the end of this debate. Is she confident that all properties will have a smart meter installed by the deadline? What options do RTS customers with poor or no mobile signal or inability to receive the radio signal at their property have? Will there be an option for in extremis, where it's demonstrated that the signal cannot be received at the property? Can they have some timer type solution to that through their smart meter, with or without a smart meter? Will a standard tariff be ruled out as an option, given that it would be ruinously expensive for any customer? What action has been taken with industry to ensure customers receive a tariff at the same rate or better than that which they had on total heating or total control? That's a key concern for constituents. And what steps will the government take to ensure that the electrical system and the statutory and commercial entities which control that electrical system will carry the risk for inflated bills as a result of these changes, and not consumers who have no responsibility whatsoever for the functioning of the electricity system, and so therefore, by any measure of justice, should not be exposed to the financial risk of a system which no longer works and that's been replaced by one which is more expensive. That shouldn't happen. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Minister, Miatta Fahnbulleh.
I would like to start, Madam Deputy Speaker, by thanking the Honourable Member for Angus and Perthshire Glens for bringing this important issue to the attention of the House. As I'll set out later, it is important that people who will be affected by this transition are aware of the issue and that the steps that we need to take in order to do the upgrade. And it is very important for me to reassure people and the Honourable Member that we are doing everything that we can to make sure that the transition is done with consumers in mind and that it works for the households that we know will be affected. Since the 1980s, the Radio Teleswitch Service, RTS, has played a really important role in helping many consumers in order to have lower cost energy for heating and hot water. However, as has been acknowledged, the technology is coming to the end of its life, and the continuation of the BBC long-wave radio signal is due to end on the 30th of June 2025. We have already extended the service once from March this year, and when the service ends, as has been pointed out already in the debate, there will no longer be the ability to switch between rates, and in some instances, yes, consumers may lose control of their heating or hot water. With the deadline fast approaching, I cannot stress enough that this is a big issue for us, it's a priority, and we understand that there is a job of work to do to make sure that we are able to deliver the transition for consumers.
I'm grateful to the Minister for giving way, because she's absolutely right about this. I raised this with the former Prime Minister's questions earlier this year, and he agreed to convene a round table where we got everybody in the room, because there's just been too much blame passing around the various partners. Actually, that meeting got overtaken by the election, but it did happen without parliamentarians at the table. Would the Minister now look at the possibility of reconvening that meeting with parliamentarians so that there is that element of accountability at the table?
Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Madam Speaker. Yes, I'm very keen to reconvene that. I think it is absolutely essential that we are working with honourable members across the House and constituencies that we know will be affected. From our perspective, we've got a big job to engage consumers, to make sure they're aware and make sure the transition is working, and we're very keen to work across the House in order to do that. One of the outcomes of the roundtable that was put in place was that a task force has been established with Ofgem, industry and the government to manage the transition and to put and inject the urgency that we need to see in the process that's ongoing. So in October, the industry signed up to a call to action, representing a collective agreement to take steps needed to speed the transition away from RTS. Specific actions that were included within this call for action are targeting of resources towards regional hotspots where we know there are a high number of RTS customers and we know that we need to do work to reach them. Fast tracking of meter upgrades to RTS customers, particularly vulnerable customers that we are very worried about, and collaboration on some of the technical solutions that we know we need to overcome and deal with. We are very clear that the delivery of the transition away from RTS requires active engagement of consumers, as they will need to agree to appointments, they will need to collaborate with their installers, and they will need to make sure that they've got the right solutions in place.
Doogan.
She's very kind. Does she agree with me? She may or may not agree with me. There needs to be a change of tone and language. It's all very well for the government or the regulator or the companies to feel the urgency, but if customers don't sense that urgency, then we're not going to get the pace that's required, because she talks about how it's a big job, and we can all agree on that. It's a big job that needs to be completed in very little time. So it's not just about the scale, it's about the pace. And if we can't get customers energised and exercised about the need to get this done, then that pace won't happen.
Minister.
I completely agree with the honourable member. We have said to suppliers that they must inform all affected customers by the 31st of December in order to make sure that we're injecting that sense of urgency both within the supply chain but critically amongst customers as well. And I think there is a collective job for all of us to make sure that those who are affected are aware that this is happening. This is why this debate is so important today. This is why I'm very keen to engage with members from across the House to make sure that we're getting that message out to constituents. And then critically, the task force has been asked to establish working partnerships with local authorities, housing providers and other customer-facing organisations so that we can get the word out that this is happening, that customers need to engage, that they must get in touch with their suppliers so we can provide the best possible options for them as we move forward.
Graham Ledbetter.
Thank you, and I thank the Minister for giving way. The experience that I've had is that the energy company has been in touch with me. The tone of the emails has been quite pushy, which is kind of what we're talking about, that they need to be pushing quite hard on the customers to make that change and get the right meter in place. However, when I've subsequently been in touch with them, I don't have the smart meter yet, it's coming in January now, but when I've got in touch with them, the first time there were no appointments, and they were unable to answer that simple question of will it be cheaper. And I cannot stress enough how much I've had to push them to get that answer out of them. I'm not a vulnerable customer. I understand why this is happening, and like everybody else in the chamber. But for vulnerable customers, they may just accept that. So there is a sense of urgency that's needed to be injected, but that needs to come with a note of caution about how that's injected, how it's communicated, and to make sure that customers understand how much they're likely to be paying. And there also needs to be a transitional arrangement where if somebody gets the wrong tariff, that they're not penalised for that and that can be changed.
Thank you to the Honourable Member for raising your personal experience of this. I think from the perspective of the government, it's very important that we have sight of where it's not working, because we need to ensure that this is working for consumers. And there is a question about capacity that we're very exercised about, that we are trying to work with suppliers to make sure, particularly in rural areas, that we're putting in roaming teams and we're building the capacity in order to be able to respond in a way that is timely, in a way that is sensitive to consumers, that we're asking to make a transition and we're asking to go through a disruption. I would like to say a word about smart meters, if I may, Madam Deputy Speaker, because they are the natural upgrade for RTS, and we do have energy suppliers that will be offering smart meters. Our view is that smart meters, if we get it right, are an opportunity to upgrade people's homes and critically for them to access smart tariffs that gives them greater control but critically will reduce bills. And I urge consumers to discuss the options with their energy suppliers. But I will acknowledge, particularly in rural areas where we've got large numbers of RTS, that we have lower levels of smart meter coverage and installer capacity. To address that, we are actively encouraging energy suppliers to ensure that they are building that capacity. We are looking at roaming teams. We're looking at how we manage demands across different geographies. We know that there is an issue with network coverage. We are working with the data communications company to ensure that we are resolving these. And in the minority of cases where households can't connect, we are advising them to engage with their energy suppliers to think about the right solutions for their home. It would be remiss of me if I didn't acknowledge that there are genuine concerns that customers have about smart meters and scepticism about smart meters. We've had the intelligence as much as other honourable members across this House. It is worth saying that there are 37 million smart and advanced meters now in homes and small businesses across the country, so 65% of all smart meters. And our analysis and our data suggests that for 90% of smart meters, they are sending automatic signals and that they are working. But for one too many customers, the experience of smart metering is not as good as it ought to be. And the number of meters that aren't working across the country is problematic. And we're trying to build confidence here. So I think there is a really important job for us to work with the regulator to make sure that we're dealing with those particular issues. So the government is working with Ofgem to introduce new guaranteed standards of performance to improve and protect consumer experience for smart meters, offering compensation where the system is falling short for consumers. And Ofgem will be consulting to introduce these new standards in the new year. Let me end by touching on the question and a wider point about public confidence, because I think public confidence is absolutely key to us getting this transition right, Madam Deputy Speaker. I acknowledge that for some consumers, they have lost faith in the energy suppliers, and the levels of satisfaction has damaged consumer confidence. I think we see this, we're hearing this when we're engaging with customers. We absolutely must, and we're trying to do more to prioritise and protect consumers in this transition, both with RTS, but the wider transition that we're trying to make with home upgrades and our Warm Homes plan. And this is why the government is strengthening the regulator to ensure it can hold companies to account for wrongdoing, require higher standards of performance, as well as ensuring there is automatic consumer compensation where failures do occur. So there is a lot to do, but I hope I have reassured the House that we are aware of the challenge, that we are doing everything we can to grip the problem and to get the regulator, suppliers, to work with partners on the ground in order to make this transition as smooth as we can make it. So I'd like to close by just, again, thanking the Honourable Member for raising the profile of this really important issue and highlighting the needs for rural communities. We have to get this right, and I'd like to confirm my desire to work with honourable members across the House to come together so that we are working in concert to make this as easy for your constituents as possible. Thank you.
Constituents. The question is that the House do now adjourn. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. Order, order.